Let me tell you guys, I am a fan of what we're going to be doing today, and that is because we are finally installing a new fan on the box fan. Of course, the only logical option here was to go with a MaxxAir fan, the fan that's named after me after all. But seriously guys, I am really excited for this one. The box fan gets so hot in the summertime, and this fan should help a lot to get some air moving and help cool things off. So let's get started with the install. I haven't gotten around to actually finalizing the layout for the box fan here, but I have a rough idea. The bed's gonna be in the back, right behind the driver's seat. On this side, we'll have the kitchen and cooking area. We'll have a little seat right here just next to the door. And the first thing we need to figure out before we can cut a hole in the roof of my van is where I actually want this fan to go. I debated putting it in the back, kind of over the bed, but I think eventually I'd hope to have some type of AC unit mounted to that back wall. So I think we'll have the AC in the back area. I've been messing around with different layouts, trying to figure out the best placement for the fan, where it's not in an awkward spot on the inside, but also leaving space for some of the other things that are gonna be mounted on the roof, like solar panels and hopefully Starlink as well. After a little bit of research and planning, I have come up with this. This is just a super basic drawing here, but that little box, that is the fan. On the outside of the fan, those bigger boxes are solar panels, and then these two bigger boxes are solar panels as well. So if I follow this layout, it should allow me to mount the air fan kind of towards the front of the van, and then have 4 total 200 watt solar panels for a total of 800 watts of solar. I haven't purchased any specific solar panels yet, but I just used some measurements from the panels I was looking at and was able to make this layout. If we take this drawing and actually come into the van here, that puts the fan being mounted right here. Now, unfortunately, there is this thing in the way. Honestly, I don't know what this is, but we're gonna need to get this out of the way because this is where the fan is going to go. So it looks like these things are riveted on there, and I probably could drill them out, but honestly, I'm just gonna take an angle grinder with a grinding wheel because I think that should be quite a bit faster. All right, whatever this thing is, it is off. So with that out of the way, we now have this space here, and this is where the fan is going to go. It'll be kind of close to the door, the kitchen, and everything will be kind of right behind you guys. If there was a living room to this van, that's kind of where this fan is going to be mounted. Before we go up on the roof, I'm going to make this wooden kind of backing plate. You can see all of these holes here on the MaxxAir fan. These are 4 screws, and since our roof is just a thin piece of fiberglass, we need something for these screws to attach into to kind of sandwich the fan to the roof. Basically, we need to make a square cutout that's 16.5 inches by 16.5 inches. It'll pretty much be the same size as this mounting plate. So like I said, the box van's thin fiberglass roof is not strong enough to screw into by itself. And that's where this wooden backing plate comes in. I used 3/4 inch plywood to make a cutout that was the same size and shape as the fan's mounting plate. The plan was to then sandwich the 2 pieces between the fiberglass roof, holding everything together. I had debated making a custom square frame with 2x3s, but ultimately decided that it was probably overkill. And on top of that, the backing plate had to be thin enough so it wouldn't stick out past the cross members on the roof. Because if it did, that would create problems later when I'm installing the ceiling. Like usual, when cutting things out with a jigsaw, I always start with a drill bit, just drilling holes around all of the edges. Sweet. All we need to do now is cut out these 2 lines with the jigsaw, and our wooden backing plate will be ready to go. All right guys, it is ready to go. Next we can hop up to the top floor and actually cut a hole in our roof, which is absolutely terrifying. And now it's time to get all of my stuff up to the roof. Since I don't have a ladder on the van, the only way I can get up there is by climbing on the roof of my Sequoia and using it as a step to get up top. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten you guys. At this point in the van build, I have gotten pretty familiar with cutting holes into the side of my van. Between installing the RV door and installing the window in the back wall, I have already cut a couple holes into my van. But even still, there is something extra scary about cutting a hole in the roof. The roof is such a common place for leaks, and I knew if I messed this one up, it could be pretty difficult to fix. I'm starting here by adding masking tape in the area where I'm gonna wanna cut this hole. That way I can use a Sharpie and actually mark out the specific line for the hole that we're gonna cut. The masking tape just gives us a nice surface to draw that line out on. If I'm being honest, I was feeling pretty nervous for this one, and as excited as I was to get the fan installed in the roof of my van, I also wanted to make sure it was done correctly. Of course, I wanted to get this fan installed in one day, but I was also trying to remind myself that this van build is not a race. So I lost some of the audio from up here on the roof, but at this point I was just double and triple checking each measurement and just really making sure this fan was exactly where I wanted it, because like I said, I had one shot at doing this. My plan for cutting out the hole was to use a jigsaw, and since the roof of my van is made of fiberglass, I used a fine metal jigsaw blade with a high TPI count, and the reason for using this type of blade was to prevent the fiberglass from splitting. We got the jigsaw, it's time to start cutting. Oh my gosh, guys, we did it. There is a hole in my roof. Let's finish cleaning up these edges and then we'll test fit the mounting bracket. First thing I want to do here is test fit this mounting plate, because as long as this fits, that's all that matters. Oh my gosh, it fits like a glove. Barely any movement left and right. Let's go, guys, we did it. Well guys, we have a hole in the van now. I just test fit the mounting plate for the MaxxAir fan up top. It seems to line up, and the next step is going to be actually attaching that in place. I need to grab our wooden support that we made. This is going to line up here. Since I don't have anyone to hold this in place, I am going to try using these, I forget what these things are called, support bars or something, and just see if we can support it from down below. Alright, let's start here with some simple green, getting this surface nice and cleaned up, because we're going to put some butyl tape on here, and I want to make sure that it adheres the best it can. Alright, now that we got this surface cleaned up, I'm going to take some butyl tape and apply it around the edges here. Butyl tape is a type of putty tape commonly used on RVs and campers. It has a couple different purposes here. The first is to help hold this mounting bracket to the roof of the van, but more importantly, it's going to help seal all of those holes for when we screw the mounting bracket into the wooden frame below. Because the butyl tape is kind of like a putty, it works great to seal off those holes where the screws are going to go. And next we can start drilling some pilot holes and getting some screws installed. All the pilot holes are drilled. These clamps are just holding our wooden support underneath. And now we are going to take some screws that are provided in the MaxxAir fan kit and attach this mounting plate to the roof of the van. There are 3 different screws included in the kit, and I'll show you guys a picture of which one to use for attaching this top mounting bracket. I was so glad that all the hardware was included in this kit, because there's nothing more annoying than having to run to the hardware store to pick up the screws or bolts you need right in the middle of a project. So shout out to MaxxAir Fan for including all of the hardware in this kit. So we got the butyl tape underneath, but even still we are going to add some more sealants since this is on the roof and that is a very common leak point. So we're going to start with some Sikaflex around all of the edges. So I was going back and forth here on what type of sealant to use. I know lots of people will choose a lap sealant when sealing off things on the roof of their vans, but ultimately I decided to go with Sikaflex. I've used Sikaflex a ton on this van build so far. I used it to completely reseal the roof along with the door and window, and so far have had really good luck with it. So I decided to just stick with the Sikaflex here because so far it's worked well for me. I took a quick break to cool off, and thankfully we are in the shade now for the rest of the night. I got the fan up here now, and I'm going to test fit it in here. That looks good. Might as well bolt it up. Bolting up the fan was quick and easy, just 4 total screws and we are good to go. The overall process for installing the fan was so much easier than I thought, but we had one last thing to do, and that was making sure this fan actually worked. Alright, so we got the fan mounted up top and I am really curious to just test this out. Make sure it all works and also just see how much airflow it can get going on the inside of the van here. So we got a positive and negative wire coming out of the fan. This is a 12-volt fan. So what I'm going to do is I just have this old wiring harness. I stripped 2 wires on it, positive and negative, and I'm going to just tie these together real quick and then run them to the car battery on my Sequoia. Then we should be able to get power from that car battery and just give this fan a test here. Guys, most of the work is done now. The fan is mounted. We sealed around the edges with Sikaflex. We tested the fan, hooked it up to my Sequoia's battery, and everything seems to work. And yeah, just so excited to have this fan in here. It is so cool. So with the ceiling fan, we also have this kind of final trim piece, and this goes in between the fan, and I actually have to cut it down a little bit, but it will kind of be the final layer on the fan there. And I'm not going to install this because this will go over all of the ceiling material. And we still have to insulate the roof. We still have to do all of the wiring for lights and stuff up here. But once we get all of that done, we can install this final piece. And this will just give the MaxxAir fan a nice, clean, finished look and hide all of this plywood and other stuff. What I also like with the MaxxAir fan is that it comes with this wall mount here too. So I obviously won't install this until later, but it will be super nice to be able to mount our little controller somewhere on the wall. Be able to just either use it kind of like almost like a thermostat type thing. So it's about 1 week later. I was up here checking, and unfortunately the Sikaflex didn't really stick to the mounting bracket that comes with the MaxxAir fan. So I'm gonna take this MaxxAir fan off. We'll give this whole area a nice, good clean, and then I'm gonna reapply some lap sealant over the edges. It seems like lap sealant is super popular for sealing off these fans, so we are going to use that instead. Alright, we got the surface nice and clean, and the Sikaflex along the immediate edges, this stuck pretty well. We're going to leave this Sikaflex and just apply a bead of lap sealant around the edges. I think this very well may be the most lap sealant ever used on a fan, but we're going to let this sit here, let it level up, and then we'll come back and check on it in just a bit. Alright, well the fan is installed, the fan works, and that is going to wrap it up for this video. It feels so good to get this project complete and kick off the process of building out the inside of this box fan. I was so excited to install this MaxxAir fan and a little bit nervous too, just to cut a hole in the roof of my van. But honestly, the install went pretty smooth and was a lot easier than I thought. If you guys are interested in seeing more of the box fan builds, definitely don't forget to like and subscribe. It's a completely free way to help support my channel, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.